There is a version of you who makes excellent decisions. She is clear. She is unhurried. She knows precisely what she wants, and perhaps more importantly, what she does not. And then there is the version of you who makes decisions at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. And those two women are not the same person. Most women who are building something significant in their career, their home, their personal presence, share a version of this problem. They begin the day with extraordinary clarity, and somewhere between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., that clarity quietly drains away. Decisions that should be effortless begin to feel labored. Messages that deserve a composed response get an impulsive one. Purchases that looked essential in the evening look questionable in the morning. That is not a character flaw. That is not a lack of discipline. That is, in fact, a biological process that most women have never been told about, and that, once understood, changes almost everything about how you structure your day.
What I am going to share with you today is not a productivity system. It is not a morning routine. It is not a list of habits to add to an already full life.
It is a structural principle, one that the most effective, most composed, most genuinely high-value women I have observed apply almost without exception, whether they are conscious of it or not. And once you understand it, you will not be able to unsee it in your own days. The solution is not doing more. It is becoming far more deliberate about when you do what matters. The conventional advice around productivity tells you to optimize your morning, wake earlier, move faster, pack more in before the day begins. And while there is genuine merit in protecting the morning, that advice misses something more fundamental, something that sits beneath the surface of every high-performing woman's day. It is not simply that the morning is better. It is that your cognitive capacity, your ability to make high-quality, values-aligned, regret-free decisions is not a fixed resource. It is a depletable one, and it depletes on a precise, predictable schedule. The women who move through the world with the kind of quiet authority that most people mistake for natural confidence, the ones who seem to have already solved something the rest of us are still working on, they are not smarter or more disciplined. They have simply structured their lives around this one biological fact, and everything else followed from there. In 1998, psychologist Roy Baumeister published research that would quietly change how the most informed thinkers in business and medicine understood human decision-making. His findings demonstrated with considerable rigor that the brain's capacity for deliberate, high-quality decision-making is not constant. It is a finite daily resource that degrades with every decision made, regardless of the size of that decision. He called it decision fatigue, and his conclusion was stark. The more decisions you make across the course of a day, the measurably worse each subsequent decision becomes. Not worse because you are less intelligent in the afternoon. Worse because the cognitive machinery that produces good decisions is, quite literally, running on diminishing reserves. This was later confirmed in a now famous study by Shay Danziger and colleagues at Ben-Gurion University, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They analyzed over 1,000 judicial decisions made by experienced parole board judges across a single day.
The findings were striking. Favorable rulings were granted in approximately 65% of cases heard in the morning.
By late afternoon, that figure had dropped to nearly zero, before rising again briefly after each rest break. Now, consider what this means for how you have been managing your most valuable days. Most high-achieving women treat their financial capital with considerable discipline. They are strategic about where it goes, careful about waste, intentional about deployment, and yet they treat cognitive capital, which is in many ways the more foundational resource, as though it is inexhaustible, available in equal measure at any hour, equally reliable at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. It is not. And the women who have built the kind of life that looks effortless from the outside, the composed responses, the unclouded choices, the persistent sense that she knows exactly what she is doing, they have, whether consciously or through hard-won experience, understood one thing. Your most valuable asset is not your time. It is the quality of mind you bring to the decisions made within that time.
And that quality must be curated, protected, and allocated with the same discernment you would apply to anything else of genuine value.
You would not spend your finest resources carelessly. Your cognitive capital deserves the same protection. The framework I am going to walk you through has 3 components. Each one addresses a different layer of the problem. Together, they form what I call the closed-door architecture, a structure that, once built into your day, does not require willpower to maintain. It simply runs. Step 1, the peak window. Guard it completely. The first step is identification. Identify the window of your day in which your cognitive performance is consistently at its highest. For the majority of women, this falls between 8 a.m. and noon, though it varies by individual chronotype, by how much sleep preceded it, and by how carefully you have protected what precedes it. If you are uncertain where yours falls, observe your own patterns for 3 consecutive days. Notice when decisions feel clarifying rather than effortful. That window is your peak. Once identified, that window becomes architecturally protected, not guarded by willpower, protected by structure, no meetings scheduled by others during this time, no reactive communication, no browsing, no decisions driven by someone else's urgency. This is where your highest value thinking lives, and it deserves an environment that reflects that. The consequential decisions of your life belong in this window. Strategic choices, financial commitments, significant communications, creative direction, anything that will have consequences next week, next month, or next year. These are morning decisions, all of them. Step 2, the amber hours. Process, dawn, decide. The second component addresses the midday and early afternoon, roughly 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., which I call the amber hours. Amber because they are not red, but they are not green either. They are the hours of reduced but still functional capacity. The amber hours are not for primary decisions. They are for processing, for reviewing information that will inform a decision made tomorrow morning, for following up on commitments already made, for administrative work that requires attention but not high-level judgment, for structured exercise, which, according to research published in British Journal of Sports Medicine, measurably restores prefrontal cortex function and can partially extend your decision-making quality into the later afternoon. They are also for the kind of communication that requires attentiveness, but not your finest thinking, responding to straightforward messages, scheduling, coordinating, the logistics of a full life. These tasks are real and necessary. They simply do not require the same cognitive grade as your most consequential choices. Allocating them here means you arrive at the next morning with your peak window fully intact, rather than depleted by a day of indiscriminate decision-making. The rule for the amber hours is simple: nothing that requires your final word. If a decision is forming, let it form. Take notes, gather information, sit with it, but do not close it. Bring it with full information into tomorrow's peak window. The brief delay will almost never cost you anything of significance. The quality of the decision it produces will, in most cases, justify the wait entirely. Step 3, the close window. After 6 p.m., the consequential day is over. The third component is the one most women find the most difficult. It is the closed window, a structural rule that after a defined evening hour, I use 6 p.m. as the standard, though you can calibrate to your life, the consequential day is over. This does not mean that your day ends at 6 p.m. It means that the category of decisions that draw from your highest cognitive reserves is no longer available after that hour. Not because of willpower, because of policy, because you have decided in advance and in a clear state of mind that certain categories of decision do not belong in the evening, and you have built your environment to reflect that. The 5 categories that belong exclusively inside your peak and amber hours and are closed after 6 p.m. are these: financial and purchasing decisions, including online shopping, which is among the most expensive forms of evening entertainment available. Responses to emotionally charged communication, the message that arrived at 4 p.m. and requires your most composed, considered voice deserves a response written at 8 a.m., not at 9 p.m. Social and professional commitments. A yes given from fatigue is one of the most costly agreements you can make. Strategic and creative direction for anything that will have consequences beyond tomorrow. And finally, self-presentation decisions of any significant weight. The evening, freed of this category of cognitive demand, becomes something it rarely is for ambitious women: genuinely restorative, not productive rest dressed as relaxation, but actual sensory and emotional restoration. A book, a considered meal, unhurried conversation. The kind of evening that produces a sharper, more sovereign version of you the following morning. That is not a luxury. That is the architecture of sustained high performance. The closed window is not a restriction, it is an elevation. The evening becomes genuinely pleasurable when it is no longer burdened with the weight of consequential decisions.
Here is what I want you to do today. Not next week. Not when your schedule is quieter. Today, within the next 10 minutes of finishing this video.
Open your calendar, your actual calendar, on your phone or your computer. and do 3 things. First, block 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Label it with nothing other than your own name. No agenda, no tasks preloaded. This is your first protected peak window. Bring into it only the 1 or 2 decisions that have been circling in the back of your mind, turning over but not quite resolving. Let tomorrow morning be the first time those decisions receive your full, uncompromised attention. Third, and this is the one that will feel most counterintuitive, find one message or request currently sitting in your inbox or messages that arrived after 3 p.m. today and requires a considered response. Do not reply to it now. Place a reminder for 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Like, write nothing except a note to yourself. This deserves my best thinking. That is the entire exercise. 3 calendar actions, 10 minutes. And yet what it puts into motion is a relationship with your own time and cognitive capacity that most women spend years trying to find the language for. You do not need a new system. You need to become sovereign over when the most consequential version of you is asked to show up. What I have described today is not a productivity strategy in the conventional sense. It is something quieter and, I would argue, more durable than that. It is a decision about how you wish to inhabit your own days and what quality of mind you are willing to bring to the things that matter most. The closed-door architecture does not ask you to do more. It does not ask you to wake earlier, work faster, or compress more into a smaller space. It asks only that you become more deliberate about when your highest value self is called upon. And it asks that you build the conditions, structural, environmental, habitual, that make that possible. The women who seem to have already figured something out, the ones whose decisions appear effortless, whose composure under pressure reads as natural, whose lives look from the outside like they simply run well, they are not operating from a different set of resources than you. They are protecting the ones they have. They have built the window. They have closed the door. And they have let everything else arrange itself around that single sovereign decision. You can do exactly the same, beginning tomorrow morning.